Well, Sean Diddy Combs.
Sean Diddy Combs. Sean Diddy Combs.
Sean Diddy Combs.
Sean Diddy Combs is locked up in a federal jail that has been plagued by harsh conditions and violence.
Have you ever wondered what life is like inside one of the toughest detention centers? Cold cells, terrible food, turheta, and constant danger. That's Diddy's new reality. Gone are the days of luxury. Now it's all about survival. Every moment is a battle and the threats are relentless. From harsh conditions to shocking encounters, he's facing challenges he never imagined. You won't believe what's happening behind those walls. Stay tuned as we uncover the truth about his life on the inside. Shaita. Life in the Special Housing Unit, SHU. The Special Housing Unit, SHU, in the Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, is a chilly, lonely, and brutal place. It's not a place anyone would want to be. Prisoners locked in their rooms for 24 hours every day are housed in the SHU. They are not free to move about, socialize, or participate in most kinds of activity. This little plain room seems more like a box than a place to live. The quiet is weighty, isolating, and nearly suffocating rather than calm. For someone like Diddy, who is accustomed to a life of wealth, freedom, and excitement, this abrupt adjustment seems like a whole other world. There is nothing elegant or comforting in the room Diddy finds. It's just a little unassuming room with a hard bed and basic services. The day is not being brilliantly illuminated by any natural sunlight coming in. Rather, it is dark and the same four walls stare back at him all day, every day. Meals arrive at his door. Even something as simple as walking outside for fresh air is a rare treat. It's done for his own safety. The separation is harsh. Prison staff keep Diddy separate from other criminals for his safety. Being a famous person always carries the risk of someone trying to cause harm. This isolation feels more like a punishment, even though it's meant to protect him. He is completely separated from the world he used to know. No family, no friends, and no comforting things around you. Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's lawyer, has expressed how difficult these conditions are for him. He said the SHU is not a good place for anyone to live, especially not for someone like Diddy who has never been through anything like this. The stress and emotional pressure of being in a difficult situation is affecting you. Days seem to drag on when you're bored and alone. It's not only exhausting for the body but also for the mind. Living in the SHU is a challenge that requires strength. Picture being in a small place where you can't move around much, it's very quiet, and there's nothing to do to pass the time. Diddy's life outside is very different. He is always around people, lights, and excitement. The SHU removes everything. Here, time feels like it has stopped, and every second feels very slow. Diddy is there as the court decide to keep him under detention until his trial. The court thinks it's important for his safety and the safety of others, even if the surroundings are somewhat hostile. Diddy only has to live in the SHU one long day at a time for now. But what exactly is life like for Diddy inside the SHU? Let's take a closer look at his conditions. Diddy's attempts at bail. Diddy's legal team has been working tirelessly to get him out of prison on bail, but every attempt so far has failed. They've gone to court 3 separate times, hoping the judge would agree to release him while he waits for his trial. Each time they have presented new arguments and offers, but nothing has been enough to convince the court. One of the offers they made was incredibly generous. They proposed a $50 million bail, a sum so large it's hard to imagine. They also promised additional measures to ensure Diddy wouldn't leave the country. His lawyer said he would stay in one specific luxury home, give up his passport, and agree to strict monitoring. They assured the court that he wouldn't pose any risk to anyone if he were released. On top of this, his lawyers argued that the conditions in the Special Housing Unit, SHU, were inhumane. They described how hard it was for Diddy to live in such isolation and how the harsh environment was affecting him mentally and emotionally. They said it wasn't fair for him to be kept in such extreme conditions before his trial had even started. Despite all these arguments and offers, the judge remained firm in their decision to deny bail. There were strong reasons behind this. One of the main concerns was witness tampering. The judge feared that if Diddy was released, he might try to contact witnesses involved in the case. Witness tampering is a serious issue, and the court wanted to ensure that nothing could interfere with the trial. Another big concern was the safety of the people who had accused Diddy. The judge wanted to make sure they were protected from any potential harm or threats. Keeping Diddy in custody was seen as the best way to guarantee their safety. Even with all the money and promises his legal team offered, the judge wasn't willing to take the risk. For Diddy, these repeated denials have been a major setback. He and his lawyers hoped that their offers and arguments would be enough to secure his release, but the court's concerns outweighed their efforts. Now he remains in the SHU, facing the same harsh conditions his team tried so hard to free him from. It's a frustrating and difficult situation. Diddy's team is running out of options, and each denial makes it harder to find new ways to argue for his release. For now, he has no choice but to wait, endure, and hope that something changes in his favor. Mental and emotional impact on Diddy. Life in prison has not only been physically harsh for Diddy, but mentally and emotionally draining as well. Reports reveal that the sudden shift from his life of luxury to the cold, restrictive world of a prison cell has taken a serious toll on his well-being. Diddy, who was once surrounded by wealth, comfort, and a constant flow of people, now finds himself in complete isolation, struggling to adapt to this stark reality. The situation has become so severe that it's been reported Diddy experienced a mental breakdown while in custody. The weight of his new reality, loneliness, confinement, and uncertainty has pressed down on him to the point of breaking. Like, imagine going from a life where every detail is carefully managed for your comfort to one where you're left alone in a tiny cold cell with little to do and no one to turn to. For Diddy, the mental shift has been overwhelming because of the concerns for his mental state. Prison officials placed him on suicide watch. This isn't just a casual decision, it's a serious step taken when someone is considered at risk of harming themselves. On suicide watch, Diddy is monitored around the clock to ensure his safety. Surveillance cameras and officers keep a constant eye on him. Even during the few private moments most prisoners are allowed to have. To further reduce risks, Diddy has been given tearaway garments to wear. These are specially designed clothes that can't be torn into strips, which could potentially be used for self-harm. This type of clothing is uncomfortable and a constant reminder of the situation he's in. There's no privacy, no sense of normalcy, and no escape from the reality of his circumstances. Being on suicide watch also means Diddy faces additional isolation. He's kept away from other inmates even more than usual, which only deepens his sense of loneliness. Visits from mental health professionals are part of the process, but they aren't the same as having a supportive friend or family member to lean on. Shrinks are there to assess his mental state, provide strategies to cope, and ensure he doesn't reach a breaking point. But the emotional void remains. The adjustment from his former life to the stark conditions of prison has been one of the hardest challenges for Diddy. His world, once filled with designer clothes, gourmet meals, and a bustling schedule, has been reduced to the bare minimum. The food is bland and basic, the environment is harsh and uncomfortable, and the freedom he once took for granted no longer exists. The psychological shock of the shift is immense, and it's not something anyone can prepare for, no matter how strong they think they are. Beyond the material changes, Diddy has lost something even more important, his sense of control. In his previous life, Diddy called the shots. He was the one in charge, making decisions and steering his destiny. Now, every part of his day is dictated by someone else. He can't decide when to wake up, what to eat, or even what to wear. This complete loss of control can be deeply destabilizing, especially for someone who has spent years living on their own terms. The round-the-clock surveillance and harsh conditions add to the emotional weight Diddy carries every day. Knowing that every move is watched, every wrist massaged, every word is scrutinized, and every action is restricted, leaves no room for peace of mind. It's a constant mental battle to keep going, to find a way to survive in an environment so completely opposite from the life he once knew. Despite visits from mental health professionals, Diddy still struggles to adjust. The sessions may help temporarily, but they can't erase the loneliness or take away the reality of his current situation. But what happens if Diddy is moved to Gen Pop? The dangers he could face might be even more alarming. Concerns about general population, Gen Pop. The idea of moving Diddy to the general population, or Gen Pop, has raised serious concerns among prison officials, legal experts, and his supporters. Gen Pop refers to the main area of the prison where most inmates are housed together, sharing communal spaces like dining areas, exercise yards, and showers. While it may sound like a standard part of prison life, for someone like Diddy, the risks are far greater. And one of the primary concerns is the nature of the allegations against him. Diddy is facing serious charges that have sparked strong emotions and opinions. Within the prison system, inmates who are accused of certain crimes often become targets, particularly when their alleged actions involve harm to others. If Diddy were moved to Gen Pop, there is a significant chance that some inmates would see him as a target because of the nature of his charges. Beyond that, Diddy's celebrity status adds another layer of risk. In a prison environment, being famous is not an advantage, it's a liability. Other inmates might see Diddy as an opportunity to gain notoriety or respect within the prison community. Attacking or threatening a high-profile individual can elevate an inmate's status among their peers, making Diddy an easy and tempting target. The potential for violence in Gen Pop is a reality that can't be ignored. Former wardens and legal professionals have weighed in, emphasizing the dangers Diddy would face if moved out of protective custody. They point out that his fame, combined with the nature of his charges, creates a volatile situation. In a confined, intense environment like prison, it doesn't take much for conflicts to escalate into physical violence. Even inmates who might not personally hold a grudge against Diddy could still view him as a means to an end. In some cases, prisoners seek to harm high-profile inmates in the hopes of gaining leverage, such as bargaining for better treatment or using the incident to negotiate with authorities. This means that even the smallest interaction could quickly become dangerous for Diddy and Gen Pop. Statements from former wardens and prosecutors highlight how challenging it would be to ensure Diddy's safety in a general population setting. Protective custody, where he is currently housed, is specifically designed to shield individuals like him from these types of threats. Moving him into Gen Pop would strip away that layer of security, leaving him vulnerable to attacks, harassment, and constant danger. The prison system is aware of these risks, which is why Diddy has remained in protective custody thus far. However, there is no guarantee that he will stay there indefinitely. Decisions about inmate housing often depend on factors like space availability, security needs, and administrative policies. For now, the goal is to keep Diddy safe, but the possibility of a move to Gen Pop looms as a constant threat. For Diddy, the thought of being moved to Gen Pop likely weighs heavily on his mind. He is already dealing with the stress of his legal battles and the harsh realities of prison life. Adding the fear of physical harm or targeted attacks only deepens the emotional and mental strain he is under. While prison officials and his legal team are doing everything they can to prevent this outcome, it's a difficult battle. The prison system is complex, and decisions are often made based on logistics rather than individual circumstances. This means that even though the risks are clear, keeping Diddy in protective custody is not a guarantee. Legal teams fight for a quick trial. Diddy's legal team is determined to get his case to trial as quickly as possible. For someone in his position, time is of the essence. Every day spent in jail under the harsh conditions he's facing only adds to his emotional and physical strain. His lawyers, led by Mark Agnifilo, are working tirelessly to expedite the trial process, but the road to a speedy trial is anything but simple. One of the main reasons Diddy's team is pushing for a quick trial is to address the allegations head on. They believe that the longer the case drags on, the harder it becomes to preserve evidence, gather witnesses, and maintain the momentum needed to build a strong defense. A swift trial would also allow Diddy to present his side of the story sooner rather than later, which could potentially help clear his name and reduce the amount of time he spends in custody. However, the government's timetable presents a significant challenge. Prosecutors often have the advantage of time on their side, as they can take months to build their case before presenting it in court. This creates an uneven playing field, as Diddy's legal team must work under intense pressure to prepare their defense while he remains in jail. Delays in the legal process are common, but for Diddy, every delay feels like an eternity. Mark Agnifilo has outlined a plan to expedite the trial process, but it's a delicate balancing act. While the goal is to move quickly, rushing through the preparation phase could leave critical details overlooked. The legal team must carefully gather evidence, interview witnesses, and build a solid defense, all while navigating the obstacles posed by the government's timeline. It's a race against the clock, with Diddy's future hanging in the balance. One of the strategies being used to push for a faster trial is highlighting the conditions Diddy is enduring in jail. His team has repeatedly pointed out the harsh environment he is subjected to, from 24-hour lockdowns to the isolation of protective custody. They argue that these conditions are inhumane and should be taken into account when determining the timeline for his trial. But what's life like for Diddy while he waits? Let's take a closer look at the harsh conditions at MDC. Conditions at MDC. The Metropolitan Detention Center, MDC, in Brooklyn has long been the subject of intense criticism for its harsh and inadequate living conditions. This federal facility where Diddy is currently being held is notorious for its unforgiving environment, drawing the attention of federal judges, Congress, and advocacy groups alike. For many detainees, including high-profile individuals like Diddy, MDC represents a far cry from basic human dignity. One of the most alarming aspects of MDC is the facility's physical state. Reports from former inmates and legal experts describe it as cramped, poorly maintained, and deeply unpleasant. Critics have highlighted several issues, including malfunctioning systems that leave parts of the building freezing cold during winter. The lack of proper heating has been a recurring problem, especially during severe weather. It's not uncommon for detainees to wear extra layers of clothing, sometimes even sleeping in their jackets just to stay warm. Food quality is another major concern. Meals provided at MDC are often described as subpar, with reports of undercooked or spoiled food being served to detainees. For individuals used to even the most basic home-cooked meals, the transition to MDC's food is jarring. Many detainees rely on commissary purchases, if they can afford them to supplement the inadequate diet provided by the facility. This creates a stark divide between inmates who have financial support and those who do not. One of the most contentious issues at MDC is the mixing of inmate populations. Unlike other facilities that segregate detainees based on factors like the severity of their crimes or their risk level, MDC houses individuals from vastly different backgrounds together. This includes low-level offenders awaiting trial alongside violent criminals. For someone like Diddy, who's being held in protective custody, the proximity to potentially dangerous individuals adds another layer of stress and fear. The general environment is tense with disputes and altercations not uncommon among detainees. These conditions are not just inconveniences, they have profound effects on the mental and physical well-being of those held at MDC. Former inmates have described the experience as dehumanizing, with some saying it leaves a lasting psychological impact. Being confined in such an environment, often for extended periods while awaiting trial, takes a toll on even the most resilient individuals. Federal judges and Congress have taken notice of these issues, with some even calling for investigations into the facility's management and operations. Over the years, there have been hearings and reports that shed light on the inadequate conditions at MDC. Despite this, meaningful improvements remain slow, leaving detainees to endure the same problems year after year. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Hit the bell icon to stay updated and click on the next video popping up on your screen. See you next time. Next.